Yes. So I think at first, and I said this in my video, you know what? I'll stop referencing my video because nobody's seen it. But I was like, oh, this is going to be a long day because the minute that the defense got up to speak, they used Jonathan Bach. So Brian Friedman was there, you know, and they basically had Diddy's appellate lawyers, which is Bach, Alexandra Shapiro, the Shapiro firm. So Bach gets up. He says they're going to split the argument into three different lawyers. Each side, plaintiff defense, is allotted an hour. Obviously, they kind of went over. But right when Bach started talking, Judge Lyman cut in and he interrupted him. And so Bach kind of started with saying, you know, this case is about a movie. It's about romance on a movie set, a director and an actor and this and that. And, you know, she signed up to be a romantic lead. This is what happens. And then Lyman was like, okay, so just because one signs up, you know, to be a romantic lead in a movie, it doesn't mean that they sign up to be harassed. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a while because it sounds like the judge is also a plaintiff, but
Yeah.
that was not the case. He
Okay.
pushed back equally on both sides. I will say that push back equally on both sides. The gist of it is, Donna, Bach, you know, they were arguing sexual harassment, retaliation, and Blake's side is saying, you know, this was gender specific, you know, they were targeting the women. And Bach was like, no, this is not gender specific. And he, you know, I'm going sort of out of order, but things like Isabella Ferrer, the whole thing about Justin making a comment about her sex scene or whatever it was. Bach was like, well, first of all, Blake Lively wasn't there for that. Number one, they're saying she's doing this on behalf of all women. Number two, he said that to both of them. The male actor on set, I'm blanking on his name.
Alex
Slimar,
Newshatter.
yeah. So, and he said it to Isabella. So he said it to both of them. It's not a gender thing.
That's so true. You know what? I've never even really thought about that. He went to a couple who just performed a sex scene in a movie that he's directing and said, you guys, that was hot. I'm not supposed to say this, but you guys, that was hot. You're so right. It wasn't like, Isabella, let me take you aside.
Not yes, and there's a couple points like that. So, and there's the disputed facts that they are pushing to the jury, right? And this is things like Jamie
Uh-oh.
and
Oh,
what?
sorry.
Oh,
I
no,
thought I lost your sound because it went over to my headphones. I was like, what is
oh, that
happening?
always
Okay,
happens
so
to
you
me
keep
too.
going.
Yeah.
You keep going.
So basically this is, you know, they're talking about disputed facts, undisputed facts, and the Jamie Heath thing about showing Blake, his wife, giving birth nude, whatever. They were like, this also was not a gender or a sexual harassment thing. They're on a movie set. He's a producer. She's going to do a scene where she's giving birth. He was showing her this as a producer, and there's family members in this video. It's not a, you know, rhymes with corn video. And also, he showed this video to male members on set as well. It wasn't specific for Blake Lively. Also, they were arguing about when Heath walked into her trailer. They both have, you know, sort of conflicting stories about this, but essentially, I believe it was Bach or Shapiro. One of them brought up, and also they had another lawyer argue. The last name was Garofalo. I forget the first
Ellen
name.
Garofalo.
Thank you. They said, you know, well, Blake even said she conceded to this. He wasn't trying to cop a look at her, but his story is she said, come in, you know, her story is, and the makeup artist corroborated. They were like, whoa, she's not dressed. But it's like, what does it matter if she conceded that he didn't try to look at her? You know, when I'm trying to approach this from an unbiased perspective, but there's certain things, you know, that Bach brings up where he said the whole dance scene where Blake felt like she was nuzzled and kissed and she's pulling away. And he's like, this is a scene, you know, between two actors. Justin's also the director. Blake's side is saying that she didn't give consent to being kissed or nuzzled. And they're like, well, he's the director. It's okay for him to improvise this. And they're like, no, we need her to give consent. And then Lyman actually was like, so wait, what you're saying is that essentially every move a director makes should go to a jury. Like, that doesn't make sense either. So
I
the
love
judge is,
how
like I said, yeah, he's pushing back. He was pushing back.
yeah, it
Um,
sounds to me like Lyman brought up a really good point, which is in when you're making a film and you have like a creative expression and it's like a dance scene or a sex scene or something where your body's moving, did he need consent to be like, I'm going to put my hand on this part of your back? I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder. I'm going to put my hand. Is that okay? Is that okay? Is that okay? I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, it was, and I think that when Bach says, this is all small potatoes we're talking here, and he used that phrase, Lyman actually said, well, when you have a lot of small potatoes, that is enough, and you've got to look at the totality of the situation. So he pushed back on that as well.
Mm,
But then, another part of this was Blake being an employee or, just a contractor. So she actually never signed her agreement. The agreement is not executed. And apparently that's not an issue because there was an email
mhm,
superseding it or whatever. But they're basically saying, like, no, the defense is like, she claimed, that she wasn't in control, but like, she is in control. She wrote a letter to Sony saying, I directed this. I rewrote the script. And they're like, this would seem like she's in control. And
yeah, her PGA letter. I don't know if you've had a chance to look at that.
yes,
It's wild.
that was referenced, the PGA letter. So the defense is like, yeah, no, this looks like she is. And so again, her team is just like, no, and they're disputing the territory between California and New York, and certain sexual harassment
Mhm,
laws. They're also, so with the sanctions about the auto deletes, I found this to be really interesting. Um, with the auto deletes, that the plaintiff Blake wants sanctions because they are saying that you knew you were supposed to keep this information so we could contest and we could, fight our battle fairly. And the defense is saying, well, you didn't file this till December of 2024. Like, why would we keep it? And their argument was, well, you knew there was going to be litigation as of July of 2023, or maybe it was November of 2023. I'm sorry. Blake returned to set. She wrote those stipulations, and they basically said there'd be legal ramifications if they weren't followed. And they're like, well, they were followed. So we thought that was that. But then Blake's team says, well, the defense actually conceded at one point saying they did think that litigation was coming. So I'm thinking to myself, well, then why are we having this argument if they already conceded to saying they knew it was coming and they auto deleted anyway? The defense gets up and clarifies. And they said, and I thought this was really important. They
mhm.
said, first of all, the signal messages were mainly between the tag team, the agency group, which was Melissa Nathan, something Abel. And what they were
Jen
doing,
Abel.
thank you, what they were doing had, they were working on Justin's reputation, meaning the defense conceded that they thought litigation would come in terms of sexual harassment on set. But what Blake's team is saying is that they were like planning this retaliation smear campaign on Signal, if that makes sense. Sorry. And I feel like
Yes.
I hope your viewers are with me here. I feel like I'm ranting and,
Well,
whatever.
you're basically saying that the defense, Justin Baldoni's team, was fighting that yes, we were using Signal at that time, but it wasn't in the thought that litigation was going to come back about this issue, like about
Correct.
retaliation or anything.
It
It was
was
more
not
just
about retaliation. It
mhm,
was only about preserving his reputation. So they said,
yes.
yes, we thought that would eventually, be a thing possibly, but like this this signal communication had nothing to do with that. And then Blake's team said, well, we know that they were communicating with content creators like Sage Steele, telling her what to do, yada yada. And then the defense is like, okay, well, you guys have all of that. We gave you all of that
Yeah,
information
how do you
anyway.
know it? Because
Yeah,
you
and they're
have
saying, "What
it.
are you bitching about?" So Lyman was actually like, "Look, you're asking for a lot here with these sanctions, but you're not proving that what existed in these messages is important to your case, or did or didn't exist." So, yeah, I mean, if anyone has questions, let me know, or if you have questions, and I can try to answer those. But that's
Yeah, the Signal messages are really interesting because we don't have like a specific date of when the signal started and when the signal ended, and it is a little confusing because there are things on text message, and then there are also things over signal. So it's like, why did you decide to use signal for this and text for that? And it does look from the outside, when you hear someone's using signal, it does feel a little bit like secretive, right?
Of
But at the
course.
same time, you're talking to your own people, your own team, and like that
Yeah.
technically is, it should be private, and you don't think that, it's going to come back in this kind of a way. What about okay, let me look into yeah, this is interesting. They also
Mm.
didn't have a duty to deserve that, to preserve them, I think is what they're trying to say. I mean, the fact that they're complaining that they didn't save them arbitrarily because they might be sued is ludicrous. That's actually an interesting thought.
Well,
It's like, yeah,
so, but what they were saying is, the plaintiff was saying is, you knew litigation was coming. So you should have never, you purposely enabled the auto delete and you knew it was coming. And their response is, yes, again, we thought sexual harassment, but this signal had nothing to do with that. So they did have a duty to preserve them if they conceded to litigation. But what they clarified is, not about that. This had nothing to do with that. But then Blake's team is saying, well, how do we know? And then the judge is like, well, how do we know that, that it's so stupid, Donna. I'm literally
I
like
know.
watching the judge like pull his hair out. I mean, it's just, it literally was so funny. Like Jonathan Bach at one point also made this comparison to this show on HBO.